Yeah, my name's Devon Jones. I drive this JDM 350Z. Has a LS3 under the hood, and to be honest, it's one of my dream cars. It came completely stock with only the exhaust, and after hearing the VQ with the exhaust, I was like, oh, I'm in love with it already. Basically, everything done to the car was me, other than the exhaust. One of my buddies had a automatic 350Z in high school. He let me drive that, and like as soon as I drove that, I was like, I'm in love with these cars.
You should have a better experience with this deep dish Momo because the owner of this car, Devon, has gone ahead and put this like extension on the stock so I don't have to take my hand off the wheel to signal anymore, which is one of the worst things about putting a deep dish. Obviously, that's not a big concern if you're drifting or on a track. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is quite an odd experience, being in a right-hand drive Nissan 350Z. It's not something you see every day. Of course, here in Canada, we are able to import right-hand drive 350Zs. They're coming to you, so you guys just have more options when it comes to 350Zs. Probably the same number of JDM 350Zs, I'd imagine, are completely just tossed and mangled from, well, driving. But potentially, because of the Japanese culture, you might get one with lower mileage. Oh yeah, there's some torque. Okay. Let's downshift a second. Wow. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it feels faster than Will's RWB 911, his 993 with the LS swap. It feels quicker. This is undoubtedly lighter. It's got way smaller wheels than that car. It sounds really good. I mean, there's tons of noise in here. All right, let's dive it into some corners. Easy to shift. Oh yeah. 275s in the back. Staggered setup. That's why people buy these cars. I've driven a couple 350Zs. They're fun. I think there are two cars, rear-wheel drive manual, that I would say are a great bargain in the sports car world, even though 350s have crept up a little bit, around, you know, $15,000, $20,000 in some cases. But when compared to a lot of the other Japanese stuff, they're still a bargain. Compared to 240s, S chassis, R chassis, and parts-wise, all this stuff is insanely cheap when compared to those cars. The other one I would say would be an Altezza RS200. I've said it once, I'll say it again, 3SGE, Beams engine, great. NA engine, that's the thing. NA, manual, rear-wheel drive, just a reliable daily. I think those two are some of the best bargains, especially importing from Japan if you can get one for cheap. This car is just so alive though, so much more alive than a factory car.
Originally, I started rallying with the car. The VQ had enough power for the day-to-day stuff, but I shortly realized that keeping up with supercars, AMGs and whatnot is just not enough. So I was like on full throttle, trying to keep up with these guys, and eventually had a lot of oil problems, as people know with the DEs. I was shooting black smoke out my exhaust. I was like, nah, they can't do it anymore. So I was like, at this point, it's either I get a new VQ, supercharge it, or I just get an LS. So like getting the LS was just a no-brainer at this point, especially for reliability.
Coming back to Stillen, I'm pretty sure they made, like back in the day, superchargers for this car. Yes. Or probably still make them, I don't know.
They do, for sure, for sure. I was looking at all the supercharger kits, but thankfully for YouTube, like I didn't have to do as much research finding out from people's experiences. Yeah. So I know there's a couple YouTubers that had the supercharged, saying blowing up VQs, and I was like, the price to build a VQ and supercharge it compared to the LS swap, basically the same, but at the end of the day, a 6.2 liter, you can't argue with that compared to a 3.5. More power than I thought I would ever have in this car. And yeah, no complaints. I have BC Racing coilovers on it. I have the work 3-piece Meisters all around. I got Bridgestone PS3 Pluses on them, which honestly, no complaints about those tires at all. Gives you enough grip in the rain. You can slide it when you want. They're not crazy expensive. I actually do have the Z1 control arms, camber arms, and all that underneath as well. This is a Nositech khaki green. It is a bit faded now, but to be honest, the color is what gets all the compliments on the car. So actually, I originally bought, it was similar to the LQ9 out of a Denali, I believe it was. And it was a 6-liter iron block. I mean, we put it in the car, we expected everything to go right. We go to crank it, piston was seized, nothing. It went click, click, nothing. So from there, I just was searching for months. Like at this point, I knew I wanted an LS3 because I had all the accessories for it already. I called a scrapyard in Maple Ridge. It had 40,000 kilometers on it, front end damage on a C6 from 2009, I believe it was. Paid cash right there and then, brought it home, and now we're here.
This literally is just, hey, you bumped up the torque everywhere in the power band, but it's still just as usable and has a similar feel to what an NA or a stock 350Z would feel like, which is a good thing. You know, turbos are fun on the VQs, and they definitely make them sound better. That's one way to make a VQ sound better, is add either a supercharger or a turbo, some kind of forced induction noise. It just adds like more layers onto the experience. When you're not on it though, it's actually really nice and quiet. Definitely quieter than Will's car at idle, which is a good thing, especially if you're gonna daily this. And this is dailyable. The clutch is like, it's a little bit heavy, but not really. Nice throw, easy. There's no like project car vibes coming from here, which is what I would want. Swapping in a completely factory engine into a completely factory chassis with a factory interior for the most part. Seat, steering wheel, yeah, but. And on a side note, this engine is not completely stocked. It's been tuned with HP tuners. These I think came with about 400 horsepower at the crank from the factory. This one's been tuned. It makes 400 wheel horsepower, 400 wheel torque. Great number. That's more than a C5 Z06. Devon also modified the NVIDIA exhaust from the VQ DE and basically helped fit it with the LS. Now, his tuner basically said that was the one kind of restrictive area of the tune. Which isn't a big deal, but they did modify it to make it work. This kind of rides a nice line between grippy canyon car that you can still push and stay within the limits of traction and have complete control and go fast in corners versus just chucking the rear end out at a moment's notice, which you still can do, which is a key component of the 350Z. Everything a 350Z should be from the factory. I think an LS swap generally works if the vehicle you're swapping the engine into is a smaller car. That's usually how you can just get more character of it. Then it doesn't, like this doesn't just feel like a Corvette. You know, it's got a shorter wheelbase than a C5 or C6. And it just, oh my God, it's so fast. The torque is incredible. Still feel it lean a little bit into the tires. The suspension isn't so stiff. There's no rubbing. And for coilovers, honestly, this has quite a good ride. Way better than I would have expected.
I'm a professional stunt performer in the film industry. Luckily enough, I was born into it, so I've grown up around it, kind of seeing all the crazy cars that my dad's buddies have had and whatnot, so it's kind of what's driven me into the car community. My personal opinion after owning a DE is I would go for one of the newer models that has the HR in it. Also the CDO9 transmission. I have gone through one transmission, hopefully that's the only one. Just blew the synchros in it, but that's a common problem with the newer ones. People do beat on the cars, like it's pretty hard to find a 350 in good condition. And if you do, you will end up paying more for it.
I'm gonna beat you to the comments, okay? Your objections of replacing the technically superior quad cam VQ35 for a single cam pushrod LS have been heard, trust me. One area it's been improved directly as a result though is the physical space above the engine that's been freed up. It fits like the VQ did, if not better. Not to mention the simplicity and cost savings of upgrading one cam versus 4. Like the VQ though, it still drones a bit, and part of that has to do with the exhaust routing being modified to snake around the steering column, something most, if not all, aftermarket LS headers don't take into consideration for a right-hand drive car. Point is, this feels like it could have left the Nissan factory, and from where I'm standing, should have. Nissan was building the VK45 V8 at the same time for the street in larger vehicles and on the track, of course, for the Japanese Super GT 350Z, but somehow the trickle down just didn't trickle far enough. The Japanese golden era was long past its peak. But hey, some would say a Z wouldn't be a Z if it had more than 6 cylinders anyways. All right, what good would an LS powered car be if it couldn't roast some tires? Has that saved you yet?
It has, honestly, probably about 5 speeding tickets at this point. There's one point I was on the island ripping. Everyone was trying to keep up behind me and I slammed on my brakes. They all start honking and like flipping me off. And then we come up on the cops and then I slowed down. They all passed me and they're waving at me. Like,
yeah.
Thank you.
It's a good thing to have though.
It is, 100%. Worth the investment.
Yeah, especially here in BC, you guys, if you don't know, if you are caught doing 40 kilometers an hour or over the speed limit, they'll take your car for a week, minimum for a week. They might take your license. Like the penalties are insane.
Yeah, oh, it's not worth it.
What kind of diff do you have in the back?
It's stock.
Stock?
Yeah,
and these came with LSD?
They did. All the Japanese models came with the LSD.
Of course.
Thankfully, I do plan to put an aftermarket LSD in it just because the stock one is a little bit unpredictable.
There we go. Woo! It's got so much grip.
Yeah, it does, right?
It's good.
It's much easier to slide with this engine than the VQ, that's for sure.
Well, VQ, you're probably popping off rev limiter too.
Exactly.
A lot more.
But here you just gotta feather it.
Woo. That's fun, man.
Always.
That's wicked. We're just breaking it in. That's what this video was. R&D, breaking it in. Thanks, Devon, for the seat time.
Anytime, of course.
Thank you, man. Yeah, if you guys want to follow Devon on Instagram, I'll put it in the description. Like the video, it helps us out a bunch. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Yeah, we'll see you very soon.